Welcome back to Autism at Home, brought to you by us at Early Autism Project Malaysia through our non-profit initiative, The Hope Project. My name is Joshebet Isaacs and it's so nice to see you again. This is actually our 15th series on Autism at Home since we launched in 2020. And if you haven't already watched the previous series, we would strongly encourage you to go back and go through, especially the Starter Kit series, as it has all the foundational context to what we're trying to teach today. Well, this series is called Tolerance. We all know that some of our kiddos on the autism spectrum may have certain inflexibilities or strong preferences. Whether it be due to sensory-related challenges or just inflexibilities, tolerance is a very big topic and a very relevant one to any child on the autism spectrum. The topic of tolerance essentially is to help teach a child with autism to tolerate something that they may not be able to tolerate. For example, one of the biggest challenges when we meet a child with autism for the very first time is usually haircuts. Or for some, it is refusal to go to new places or the refusal to try new foods. Now, in a previous series, Unit 7, we talked about building flexibility, specifically in the areas of transitions, waiting, taking turns and sharing, adapting to changes, and accepting no. Now, this series is entitled Building Tolerance, but we will be using similar strategies, specifically the concept of desensitization. And as usual, it would be important for a child to have the following prerequisites: the ability to cooperate, specifically following first-hand instructions, complying to basic instructions, following a visual schedule, and some functional communication. Do remember that this is a core basis of the building blocks of learning, and you can always go back to review those lessons in our previous units. Also, very importantly, do not forget to utilize the 3 key strategies: break skills down, pair with reinforcement, and provide sufficient practice. As usual, we will be focusing our efforts on preventative and teaching strategies. We introduced this teaching technique called systematic desensitization, which is essentially a behavioral technique in which an individual is gradually exposed to an anxiety-producing object, event, or place while being engaged in some type of relaxation at the same time in order to reduce the symptoms of that anxiety. While we may not know specifically if a child is anxious, we are able to observe specific behaviors that communicate that a child is struggling to tolerate something. For example, covering their eyes or covering their ears, rejecting or pushing away, trying to leave the table, or heightened self-stimulatory behaviors. For simplicity, we have simplified the general guideline to doing a systematic desensitization, and there are about 5 suggested steps of implementation that a child will need to go through to hopefully successfully build their tolerance. Stage 1 is to communicate expectations. This is the very first step. We're using social stories, video models, visual schedules. You're actually breaking down the skills and you're communicating the expectations in a way that your child is able to understand. As you are presenting this, your child is also being exposed to the possibly anxiety-producing item or event, but just through visuals. Step 2 is to probe. This step is to present the expectations, whether it be again the items or the event, but without any specific demands. Your child just needs to tolerate being there while you present the different items. For example, in our next video on haircutting, you may lay out all the items out and see which ones your child is willing to touch or look at, and which ones make your child want to leave the table or even leave the room. You would just start to model and then demonstrate the expectation, either on yourself or even on a little doll or another child, a peer or an adult. This is usually in addition to a video model so that a child can see the real life practice and hopefully be more willing to try it his or herself. This is also part of the systematic desensitization, as your child is still being exposed to the expectations, but now having to tolerate the items in real life and not just on visuals. Step 3 is practice. Now, as you can gauge which parts are less challenging and which are more challenging, it's time to practice and to build up their time or duration tolerating the object or the place or the environment. A lot of tolerance programs can start from as short as even a few seconds and up to like hours. The systematic increase of whatever it is that a child finds challenging can be individualized to each child's needs. Usually we would focus on one specific aspect at a time. Now, step 4 is the big day. Now, in the autism or ABA world, this terminology is more in reference to a toilet training day. But in general, the big day refers to the actual event or the big event or the real moment. So this would be applicable to the day that your child actually goes for that proper haircut in the salon or has a birthday party. Everything you have been doing up to this stage is to prepare for the big day. You want to ensure your child is as properly prepared as possible. You have your visuals with you, you have reinforcement, you have your reactive strategies in case it doesn't work out as well. Step 5 then is to review. Do you generalize or do you troubleshoot? Because after that, you're just going to review the big day. How did it go? If it was successful, then fantastic. Your child has learned how to not only tolerate something, but actually be successful through the routine or the event. You can then start to work on generalization in different locations or different people, essentially making it more challenging. But if it was not so successful, that is all right as well. You just need to go back to the drawing board and review which part was challenging. Essentially, if your child presented challenging behaviors during the big day, it's just your child communicating that he or she is unable to tolerate that step yet. And we need to simplify it further, maybe provide more practice as well as stronger reinforcement. We go back to stage 3, we build up the practice and systematic desensitization again in order to prepare for the next big day. Well, now it's your turn. Check which of the following are the challenges that your child currently faces. Is it haircutting, nail cutting, separating from parents? Maybe it's loud sounds or crowds and new places, or maybe even birthdays. There are many more tolerance areas, and so do feel free to add on additional areas of tolerance that may be a bigger priority to you and your family. Discuss with your family members on which area to focus on first with your child. Leave a comment below to share with us which area of tolerance is the most challenging for your kiddo. Well, there you go. In this lesson, we just wanted to provide you a basic guide on a simplified way to build your child's tolerance in the areas that are relevant to them. For the next lessons of this series, we'll be targeting tolerance to hair cutting, then nail cutting, before tolerance to being separated from parents through a program called I'll Be Back. Then we will talk about tolerance to loud sounds, then tolerance to crowds and new places before birthday parties. Also, just a disclaimer, we will not be targeting broader areas such as toileting and food tolerance in this series, as they both need a series of their own, and we hope to cover them in the future. So that's it, the general introduction on building tolerance. In the next lesson, we will be talking about hair cutting for children with autism. If you haven't already, do check out our free online resource platform, Autism at Home, which has all the corresponding articles and downloadables for you. And don't forget to click subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram and Facebook to stay updated. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon.